All right, welcome back to the Dental Domination Podcast. My name is Dan Bryan. I'm the co-founder of Dentalscapes, but I'm not here to talk about my business today. I'm here to actually talk with a special guest, Dr. Todd Snyder. And this guy knows what he's talking about. Trust me. We're going to dig into some pretty interesting topics, I think, today that will be of interest to a lot of y'all out there. We're going to be talking about practice patient communication. And in particular, we're going to be digging into the wonders of text messaging for dental practices and why it should be an essential tool in your arsenal. But before I get into that, I want to say a few words about Dr. Snyder. Like I said, this guy has a lot of street cred. He is a renowned cosmetic dentist, an author, speaker, researcher, and might I add, an inventor. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about that. But this is a patent holder, folks. He's also the founder of a group called Legion, dedicated to helping dentists save more time, make more money. He is the host of the Delusional, the Weekly War podcast, and I'm going to let him say a few things about that as well. And then he also, on top of all this, as if that weren't enough, he still actively practices in both California and Nevada. So pretty awesome stuff. Dr. Snyder, I can't thank you enough for being on here today. Thank you for dropping by.
Dan, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So what more can you tell us about your background? How did you get into cosmetic dentistry? How did you get into speaking and organizing these groups? What's your story?
You know, I had a mentor at UCLA that was an international speaker and author as well. And he basically took me under his wings and showed me a lot of the different things that most dentists don't get exposed to as far as, you know, how to publish, how to do research. And we created a graduate program on cosmetic dentistry at UCLA. It was a 2-year graduate program. It doesn't exist anymore. And so from that, I started lecturing a little bit here and there to the students, as well as getting a couple opportunities locally. And with time that, 30 something years later now, I've lectured all around the world. It's been a wonderful opportunity to see places, meet people, and talk about different aspects of dentistry, the possibilities of what we can do, the frustrations of what we have.
Yeah.
And because of that, I decided to go ahead and open my own teaching facility, which is Legion.
Awesome.
And so I started teaching online about 5 years ago and having courses there, but also we do it in a unique manner such that there's interactions daily. And you pretty much have almost 24/7 interaction with people inside the group. And we talk about things that typically don't get talked about in dentistry or from the podium for that matter. And for the same token, I help people set goals, achieve goals. And with that, pretty much everyone that does the work inside Legion becomes, really successful having done the work, as opposed to our typical continuing education system, which I think is broken. Take a course and you implement for a week or two, and the next thing you know, it's gone. You're back to your old habits. So very unique that it's live, online, and in person.
And I guess because you know how to help people save time, you're saving time yourself because you still clinically practice as well.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, my mentor showed me so many things that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel, that I, leaped past many people that were already in private practice for many years. So my goal is to say, hey, here's what I've done. Not that you have to do it the same as I have, but take the knowledge of what I've done and maybe improve upon that such that you're further ahead than I was and you can do even better than I have done in my career. That's the goal, is to help everyone move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to dig into patient communication today and communicating with patients actually outside the practice with external communications. We're going to talk about texting, of course. That's going to be a real focus of ours today. But when you start talking with other practice owners, maybe within the Legion group that you're talking about, and they come to you, they're having pain points in terms of communication with patients. What are some of the common refrains that you hear? What are some of the definite issues facing practices today when it comes to communicating with patients outside the office?
Well, it's funny because I would say there's 3 things that we talk about inside of Legion. We call it a trifecta.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time in dentistry, we talk about how we can deliver more dentistry. I need to go learn more continuing education. I need to go take such and such course to learn how to do implants, aligners, root canals, whatever it is. And you think that, hey, if I learn more and do more of those things, I can make more money. And yet most people find that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
What they find is, even though they've taken all the courses and they feel comfortable doing many of the things they learned, they're not getting the repetitions. They don't get to do it on a regular basis. Therefore, they still have fears. They still aren't really comfortable, but they know they have some knowledge and some skill sets there. And so they're wishing and hoping that they could be doing more of those. So that going back to the trifecta, delivery is the last thing. That's the third aspect. The first 2 things that typically dentists don't train on is how to attract right? How do you attract the right consumer that wants what you're offering? And the second thing is, how do you convert? How do you convert them to say yes and move forward? So that means communication skill sets, not only in your print work for advertising, your if you do videos or social media, as well as communication on the phone or in person, or as you're saying, text messaging or emails. And so there's a huge aspect of communication and psychology that dentists never train on. And they assume their front office is good at it because they hired a front office person.
Yeah.
And so you go, wow, communication, if we really think about it, and the ability to attract who we want, those two aspects of the trifecta are missing. So you figure
Yeah.
66% of your business is missing, but you're continuing to focus on the one thing, the 33%, which is delivery. You wonder why you don't get to do more? It's because you don't know how to attract, you don't know how to convert, and you're not working on those diligently so that you can do the exact type of work with the exact type of people that you want to be treating.
Yeah. Now, assuming, you mentioned you get a front desk person in there, you assume that they know everything about communication. We all know how that often turns out. But in any case, what are some of the major pain points that you see dental practices dealing with when it comes to communication with patients?
Well, you hit it on the head. I mean, we're hiring someone that left someone else's office. They either left because they were frustrated or they were let go. And so you're hiring someone, I hate to say it, that usually has bad habits.
Yeah.
And I'm not picking on anyone, but if you look at the industry, 99% of dentists don't train their staff. And that's a fact out there as far as training on communication and interaction. And so you go, okay, so the number one problem, let's talk about the front office and their communication skill sets. Well, the majority of them are reactive to what happens. So if someone calls in, they answer the phone. They say, how can I help?
Hopefully
Person on, yeah, right. Hopefully they answered the phone.
Yeah.
And so the person on the other end is the one that's dictating the conversation because they're asking the questions, and therefore the front office person is trying to be helpful and give them the response. But once the patient or person on the other end has gotten the response and they're done, they're off the phone. So
Yeah.
the communication and psychology there should be more of being proactive and saying, okay, let me take charge of the communication here that's going on. Let me help them, but I'm also going to direct them down where I want them to go. In other words, lead them down a corridor to a door that I want them to walk through. How do I help them to walk through and see that door is all based on my communication and the questions I ask them that they then have to give answers back to me. And I'm going to use those answers against them to get them to want to move forward with me and to do what I'm wanting them to do, as opposed to just being reactive to their questions and not getting anywhere.
Yeah, really.
Right?
I mean, the front desk should be asking most of the questions, to be honestly, at least in my experience. And they say that you can really guide the conversation through questions, and I'm a firm believer in that. I'm also a firm believer in the fact that it's so often about personality and authenticity. And I'm always reminded of something that my friend Jessica Martin, she's a dental consultant and also a practice co-owner, but she said that you can definitely hear a smile through the phone, and you can also hear an eye roll, believe it or not. So can you relate to that?
Right. Definitely. Definitely. You can tell someone that's really there, that wants to help you, that's engaged in doing things and having a good time, as opposed to someone who's like, you're bothering me. I need to go do something else, or I'm stressed out and frustrated.
Yeah. Well, in your years of clinical practice and your years consulting with other dentists, how has communication changed with potential patients as they, maybe adopt new technology or have different expectations? What's the change that you've witnessed across the span of your career?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of great things. So we hit on the skill set that's lacking in communication as far as a phone. And so you go, okay, well, we don't oftentimes pick up the phone, or we want to interact with a lot of people quickly, and to call every patient just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Hence technology comes into play, is what you're basically saying. Is like, what do we have? Well, we've got a lot of great things. So we have the ability to text, obviously, our patients, whether we want to text them while we're at the office, whether we want to text them through a software app on our phones when we're not available, the
Mm-hmm.
ability to interact and see those text messages and or phone calls at any point in time, 24/7 on our cell phone via an app. And I'm saying this, but there's numerous products out there. The one I'm referring to that I'm using is Weave.
Yep.
So the ability to interact with people quickly and easily when people want instant responses, that immediate gratification that everyone wants nowadays, we have that ability. But in addition, we don't have enough staff or time necessarily to talk to everyone. So hence automation becomes nice as well. And so
Yeah.
having text automation based on what someone's doing is also another way that we can have communication even after hours or while we're on the phone. So
Yeah.
I'd say text communication is huge nowadays.
Yeah, and leveraging data in addition to that, like you said, automation, and I can't agree with you more. The data piece is so important as well. I was talking with someone else, and forgive me, I can't think of the name on the podcast several months ago, and they said, you ask a dentist, what is the most valuable asset at your practice? Most people aren't going to tell you their patient database, but there's a real argument to be made that that really is the most important and potentially most valuable asset, especially when it comes to segmenting that database for targeted communication, especially in this day and age via text, as you mentioned. And I want to talk about Weave at the end as well, because I think it's a great platform. Dentalscapes is actually a Weave authorized partner, and we can help folks get started with that. But as far as text messaging goes, there are so many things that a practice can leverage it for. Appointment reminders, one-to-one questions, promotional campaigns, again, in our experience, most effective when you segment to those lists. What are some of the most valuable ways that your practice specifically, and the practices that you coach, are leveraging text messaging?
Well, again, when I'm coaching, I say, here's all the possibilities. Pick the ones that work for you, and obviously, what you think works might not, and so you have to course correct. So what I'm going to say now is what works for me in my office. And so you think of the frustrations of new patients, getting them to show up on time, getting them to fill out their paperwork. Basically, we send out ahead of time, when someone calls in, all the new patient paperwork forms. And in there, it says, if we do not have these 48 hours prior to your appointment, we will reschedule you.
Yeah.
So you go right there. That means that someone is showing up on time because they don't want to be rescheduled. They're filling out their forms. And if they happen to show up at the office and they haven't filled out their forms, there's a good chance we're going to say, sorry, we had already sent you a message saying if you didn't fill them out, we're not going to see you. We've already filled that appointment. So unfortunately, we're going to have to reschedule you, which some people may say, oh, but no, we want to see that patient. I don't want to be put behind schedule. I don't want all my staff members to be frustrated. I don't want all the patients that made appointments and showed up on time and did the work to be frustrated that I'm running behind schedule. So we run on time.
Yeah.
So there's one huge aspect right now is that people know in my practice, you show up on time and get the work done as far as filling out forms, or you will not be seen.
Yeah.
From there, they also know that, if you're 15 minutes late or that you cancel inside of that 48 hours, that you may potentially be charged a fee. And so that's also in that text reminder. So again, people show up or they reschedule prior to that appointment, not to disrupt our business.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then you have the automation of text as far as people that maybe need to come in for appointments that haven't been in a while. You also have that touch point of saying, hey, it's your birthday or it's an anniversary in the practice, whatever you want to have, that nice touch point where they think it's coming from you personally, even though it's an automation. And you can add in videos and photos and things there too, which is nice.
Yeah.
For the same token, someone who's been in the practice, we all pretty much have review systems. But again, when a patient leaves, that automatic review that says, hey, please write us a review. But you typically want to hit them up while they're in the practice. So that you're asking them for a favor. It's usually already on their phone. They look down like, oh, yeah, I did get it. Can you do that right now? Because I know we're going to get busy. You get in the car and you're going to forget about it. Can you help us out? And they're like, sure. There's another key component there that we didn't have to do anything. It was all automated.
Yep.
For the same token, someone that wants to pay a bill, I can send it to their smartphone via text message as well.
Yeah.
And so you go, wow, a lot of the stuff that usually the front office staff would have to do, they don't have to with all the automation that texting has the ability to take care of for us.
Yeah, it's amazing. You can transform a small team into a small army with automation, essentially. And I just love the opportunity out there. Now, as far as one-on-one questions go, are you encouraging your patients at all to text in with any questions they have, say post-op or whatever it might be? Is that something that you're doing as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You can obviously call us, but if it's after hours, text us because for the most part, we monitor those.
Yeah.
And so in that instance, like, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night. I got a little discomfort. I'm not going to call them and wake them up, but let me see if they'll answer a text message. And like, yeah, usually one of us will. And one of my team members also is pretty good at monitoring that as well. And
That's
so
great.
sometimes on weekends, they'll tell me like, hey, there was a text message. Can you respond to them? Like, sure, no problem.
Yeah. Do you set expectations for your team, whether it's after hours or I'm mostly thinking even during the workday? Do you set expectations for follow-up times to incoming text messages and that sort of thing? Because, I joked earlier about not answering the phone, but the worst thing that can happen at least in my experience on the front end, is letting a call go to voicemail. And there's sort of that same effect for text messaging that goes unanswered. What's sort of your thought there?
Yeah, well, the beauty of the text messaging obviously is you have push notifications basically on your cell phone.
Yeah.
So if you're in the office, you get pop-up notifications on the computer if you're someone sitting in a computer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're someone that has your cell phone on, then obviously you can get notifications there that, hey, there's a message here. And so in that instance, yes, I want everyone to respond as quickly as they can.
Yeah.
But for the same token, everyone's got a life. And if it's 9 o'clock at night or later, I'm not expecting someone to still be looking. But if someone happens to be up and they see it on their phone, well, great that my team's willing to take that extra step and take care of that person.
Yeah, one of the things too that I love about platforms like Weave is that they have the missed call texting as well. So if a call is missed, and we all know that the front desk gets busy, things get overwhelming. Maybe you're dealing with multiple patients at once. You get an automatic text message back that says, "Hey, sorry, we're busy with other patients right now. We will give you a call back within a few minutes." I mean, I think that's just a golden opportunity for.
But you can add on to that because that's editable. You can say, "We'll call you back in a couple minutes," or feel free to text us while I'm on the phone. I might be able to answer your question. You're like,
yeah,
"Oh, well, that's
absolutely.
cool."
Absolutely. Or you can even text them, the link for self-scheduling if you're using something like that. I mean, it's a great opportunity. What about, text messaging etiquette, your front desk, your patients? I mean, are you setting expectations for, how the team is actually interacting with patients, or the kind of personality and authenticity that you want the practice to exude?
I think, well, we haven't specifically outlined what that would be because everyone's got their own unique way of communicating. But my employees have been around me long enough. They know kind of how I handle things. They
Yeah.
know how I interact and talk. And I think they've learned a lot as far as communication that they were never exposed to previously.
Yeah.
So because of all of that training on communication, they think differently now in the way that they respond. And a lot of times it's more of open-ended questions.
Yeah.
So you're making the patient have to give you information that you can then use to your advantage.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to pivot really quick before we close out here and talk about Weave, not because this is a paid promotion. I can assure everyone I'm not getting paid for this by Weave or anything like that. Dentalscapes, however, is an authorized Weave partner. We can help you get set up. We can actually waive your initiation fee. But Dr. Snyder, I wanted to ask you, if someone were talking with you, maybe in Legion, another dentist owner interested in implementing text messaging but hasn't yet, what would you say to that person?
I would tell them they need to seriously consider what they've been doing because, I hate to say it, but many front offices are overstaffed with front office, right? And so you go, well, not to say to fire anybody, don't want to upset anyone, but maybe you can repurpose them that now they can be proactive in going to create opportunities, to create revenue, to help patients that need, treatment or having discomfort or wanting change, et cetera. And so in that instance, you go, text messaging actually makes you money in the sense that you're freeing up time for staff to go do other things.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, if you're shorthanded, well, again, text messaging helps there because you can do more things through the automation that you and I had already discussed. So a lot of times I see dentists getting hung up on fees like, oh, it's a couple $100 a month. I'm like, yeah, but if you made a couple $1,000s a month, isn't it worth the return on investment?
Yeah. And think about all the money that dentists are spending on marketing to begin with. I mean, part of it is about protecting that spend, right? I mean, if you can convert at even a few points higher, that's worth its weight in gold. But yeah, so I just wanted to ask you again, because I believe in the product, are there specific features or functionality of the Weave platform that you found impactful for your practice specifically?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the whole app. Everything has been phenomenal. I've been with them since pretty much their inception.
Yeah.
So having my phone with me, I could literally pull up the app and right now, and I can listen to every conversation when I'm out of the office, every phone call that came in, how my staff had trained or had interacted to see if our training is working, to see if there's anything I need to go back and train them on. I can see text messages, the ability to look at reviews, to respond to them. Again, if someone needs to make a payment, I can do that from here, anywhere on the planet that I have connection to the cell towers. I mean, it's just amazing, all of that. But I will say the one thing for me that is huge, as I said earlier in the Legion trifecta, the attract and convert.
Yep.
We said your patient base is probably the most profitable, most successful thing you have as far as creating more revenue. And yet it's proven in business, not just dentistry, but in all business, follow up on opportunities is one of the biggest mistakes and problems in most businesses. And so with their email capabilities and text capabilities, I can send out mass messages to my patient database saying, hey, here's an opportunity this month, or here's something you may not be aware of that happens in dentistry. And if you're not sending out some type of information on a regular basis, maybe every 2 or 3 weeks, you're
Yeah,
missing out on staying connected and to be top of mind that they're telling people about you and or wanting more of what you're offering. And so I
100%.
find oftentimes dentists feel they need to go market to new patients and new opportunities as opposed to hitting up the database they already have that is so vital to their success, and it's so easy.
It's huge. Are you using Weave to send out, kind of targeted campaigns, text-based campaigns for specific promotions and that sort of thing as well?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, and you were talking about follow-up, and I've seen the statistic that says, if your business is not responsive within 20 minutes, you've lost that patient. And I would actually go further and say it's probably closer to 5 to 10 minutes at this point in today's, tech-riddled society. You've got to be on it. And I think a platform like Weave, text messaging in general, is something that, like you said, is really can't miss for practices. And so if you're listening to this podcast and you're interested in implementing text messaging or Weave as a platform for your practice, as recommended by Dr. Snyder and me, I hope you'll visit getweave.com/partners/dentalscapes. We can waive your initial fee. We can get you set up. But in any case, it's a huge opportunity for practices out there. And I'm so glad to have had you on, Dr. Snyder. Thank you so much for stopping by, sharing your insights. What can you tell us? What can you tell folks about Legion, about how to get involved, about how to reach out and connect with you if folks are interested?
Sure. Well, there's numerous different ways. Obviously, you can Google us, but legion.dentist. So www.legion.dentist is our website. You can go there. Obviously, if you have specific questions, there's a contact us page on there. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, we're obviously on there as well. So you could follow us at Legion Dentist on Instagram or Facebook. Feel free to DM me or whatnot. But I would say go to the website, see what we offer. It's not typical education. I mean, granted, I'm big in cosmetics. I can teach you veneers, bonding, and all that, occlusion, whatnot. But if you don't know how to market yourself uniquely, if you don't know how to communicate effectively, if you're not setting goals and pushing yourself to strive to create something better for you, your family, your patients, those are things that we help people excel on, because oftentimes we just get comfortable. We get beat down and frustrated in the dental world the way things are with insurance reimbursements and the headaches that are involved. And we help people overcome those and
Well, I
find a
could
different way
drag
to
you
be
back on for
profitable.
10 episodes about that. Yeah.
We're different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you're also a podcaster. Where can folks check out your
Yeah.
podcast?
We're on all the main platforms, but we're delusional, winning the weekly war of dentistry. Because how often are we all delusional? Not just dentists, but just people, as far as what we do and why. And so how do you win the weekly war, the war of, business, of dealing with people and dealing with frustrations? So we talk about a lot of things to help people, better themselves and better their lives.
It's a battle, man. It's a battle made easier with text messaging, though, I'll tell you. Well,
Sure
thank you
is.
so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Snyder. Really appreciate you stopping by. Thank you all for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please take a moment, just 2 minutes out of your day, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get these shows. I would really appreciate it. It is the best way for us to reach other dentists out there that we can potentially help. So I really appreciate it. Dr. Snyder, thank you so much. I would love to have you on again in the future if you were interested. And I just appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dan. I'd love to be back.
All right. Take care.
All right, you too.